teaching and encouragement concerning marriage, the home, the relationship. So trust me, we had a ball last night with our Family Matters conference. It was just a 1-hour thing. Greg did just a fabulous job, but I believe today's going to be even better. But just hang on, because it's going to be like drinking from a fire hydrant. Just right. A couple of things that I need to do before we get started, just a couple housekeeping things. Number one, if at any time during the day, this afternoon, you have the need for a restroom, you can find ladies in the lobby on this side. The men's is in the lobby on this side. If those happen to be full, if you will go out the auditorium, either of these doors, they both lead the same direction. This side, you go down the hallway, you will hang a right, a left if you go down this way, and there are extra restrooms on the back hallway back there. Also, we have refreshments for you. We have coffee, we have waters, we have sodas, we have candies, all kinds of things. So just help yourself. You are welcome to bring those in during the session into the auditorium. Just ask that you be a little extra careful because our folks do have to clean that up after we're done tonight. So in case of an emergency, we would hate for that to happen, but look around, just like if you're on an airplane, find the nearest exit. It may be behind you. Right there they are, okay? And right here. Number 4, if you are to need assistance with anything at all over the next 4 hours, any question that you have whatsoever, see one of our volunteers. Their badges are green. Mine's orange because I'm special, and Trey has one that's orange too. So, but anyway, it will say New Life Volunteer on it. So see them or ask myself or Trey. We'll get you the answers and provide you with any assistance that you need whatsoever. And then finally, as you go out into the lobby here, we want you to take part in the photo booth. You can use that as a selfie booth, or we'll have a volunteer take a picture with your phone for you. But, post it on social media. Let everybody know where you are. Hashtag we still do. Marriage conference, just whatever. Just get the word out where we are, what we're doing. And so make sure you use that and have a good time, create some memories back there. So I think that is all of the things that I need to say. I'm going to ask 2 of my favorite people to come up, and they're going to introduce Greg for you. But Matt and Tab, if they would come on out, are our marriage ministry coordinators here at New Life Church, and they are sort of the brains behind this entire process and have worked diligently to make sure that everything is just right and all the volunteers are in place and everything's, Matt is a perfectionist, so everything is perfect for you guys today. So if it is not perfect, see Matt.
So again, like he said, I'm Tabitha, and this is Matt Hamilton. We would like to thank you all again for taking the time to invest in your marriages, as that's very important to us. Matt, we're going to give a little blurb of why we have a passion for marriage, and Matt's just going to talk a little bit about our testimony. Before he does that, just in case, I think Brandon mentioned the photo booth. We're going to do that in between sessions, as well as door prizes in between sessions as well. So you all have a ticket in your bags. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt and let him give a little bit of our testimony and take it from there.
Thanks, sweetie. For those of you who know Tabitha, this is extremely difficult for her to get up on the stage and talk in front of people. So it's not difficult for me. I like to talk, so I can stand up here all day and talk. But I really appreciate her being up here beside me.
You got about 3 more minutes.
I have 3 minutes. I have a couple things I want to talk about. First one is the why. Why are we having this conference? Why does New Life Church even have a marriage ministry? Well, first of all, marriage is the bedrock. It's the foundation of the church. And if we don't invest in our marriages and we don't have strong marriages in the church, then we're not going to have strong churches. And so about 4 years ago, in 2015, our marriage went into crisis. We were separated for over a year and had no intentions of getting back together. And God literally raised our marriage from the dead. And so one thing we learned through that process is that you have to invest in your marriage. You can't just put it on autopilot and expect things to go great. One of the things God convicted us about is we invest in things, and we use that word invest a lot. We invest in things that matter to us. We invest in our 401ks. We invest in our careers. We invest in our kids. We invest in our loans. We invest in our vehicles. Whatever is important to us, we invest in. But we were not intentional about investing in our marriage prior to 2015. And so now we are very intentional, and we want to make sure that we speak that message out to others. And so that's one reason why we started this marriage conference. So that's sort of the why and the vision. A couple things I want to bring to your attention real quick. You all should have gotten a bag when you came in, a white bag. In that bag is an agenda for the day, and there's also behind the agenda is a notepad for you to take notes on. So as Greg is speaking in here throughout the evening, if you have a question that you want Greg to answer, then you can either write it on one of those blank pieces of paper on your agenda and drop it in the baskets during the breaks, or there's also note cards out there. Because at the end of the day's session, at the very end of the day, we're going to do a Q&A with Greg. So whatever questions you guys write and put in those baskets, we're going to ask Greg. He's going to answer them from the stage. There's also prayer boxes out there. If you have something that you want lifted up, that you want us to pray for, not on the stage in front of everyone, but our pastoral team, our marriage ministry team, if you want us to pray for something, please write it and drop it in the prayer boxes out there in the lobby as well. Also, we're going to have 2 breaks. At the end of those breaks, we're going to do a drawing at the end of each break. So in your white bag, you should have got a ticket. Make sure you come in from the break by the time it ends so that you can be in to win the gift cards. We're going to be drawing for gift cards. So we have Outback, we have Starbucks, we have all kinds of gift cards. And then also, there's tables in the back right in front of the sound booth. We have Debbie Wood here from Family Life. Debbie's in the back. She's raising her hand, waving. Family Life, if you're not familiar with them, they're an organization. And Debbie also, I'm going to give her a shout out real quick. She got us the whole thing started here with Tab and I. We had no direction in what to do with the marriage ministry. So I looked up online and found Debbie. And Debbie gave us so much direction with starting a marriage ministry. But she represents Family Life. And she has some things back there on her table that are for marriage, family, and men. So I would encourage you to go back. Greg also has a table. He'll speak more about his own stuff, so I'm not going to steal his thunder. And also, that's it, actually. So now it's our pleasure to introduce our speaker of the evening. We went to the Weekend to Remember Marriage Conference in 2016 with some people here from church. And Greg Speck was one of the host speakers, one of the speakers of that weekend. And we took 8 couples from this church at that time. And I tell you what, all 8 couples, when we left that conference, is a weekend-long conference called the Weekend to Remember. Greg's going to also talk about that. But he was speaking, and we were just like, this guy is awesome. Like, he will keep you laughing. We had like 3 men that was part of that 8-couple team that went. They didn't want to go. But by the time we left, they loved Greg. And so we were like, we got to have this guy come speak at our church. So it's my honor and my pleasure to introduce Mr. Greg Speck.
Great job. Great job. Thank you very much. I am so happy to be here today, and thank you for coming out. I know half of you in this room are so excited to be here, and the other half would rather be having a root canal. I get that. But regardless, thank you for coming, and thank you for investing in your marriage. Here's how I explain this. It's a tune-up for your marriage. It's a tune-up. I'm going to suggest you have at least 1 car, probably 2 cars. And you paid a chunk of change for those cars. Every once in a while, you get a tune-up. That just makes sense. Well, you probably put down a chunk of change for your wedding. So every once in a while, you get a tune-up because that just makes sense. So thank you for being here for this tune-up. And I want to make you 3 promises as we head out on this journey this afternoon. Promise number 1 is, I am in this with you. If you were hoping to have a perfect speaker that does everything right, man, are you going to be disappointed? No, I'm going to be open and honest with you. I'm going to tell you the shortcomings. I'm going to tell you the failures. But let me tell you what my philosophy is this morning. It's a quote by Paul Little. I guess it's this afternoon. It's a quote by Paul Little, and it says this: "It's like one beggar telling another beggar where to find food." My philosophy is, look, I've discovered some things that have made a difference in my marriage, and what I'd like to do is just pass them on to you. Second promise is, I'm going to give you practical steps you can take that'll make a difference in your marriage immediately. I'm not just going to give you pie in the sky philosophy. I'm going to be talking about what you can begin to do to see some positive changes. Now, some of you, maybe you're kind of worried. You're like, I don't really know what this, day is going to be like. Actually, I thought we were going to Bojangles for chicken, and we ended up here. And, are we going to be in, little groups? Are we going to have to, talk to other people? No, that's ridiculous. I'm bringing you up here on the platform. No. Look, this is just for you as a couple. You don't have to talk to anybody else. Turn to the couple sitting next to you right now and say to them, we don't have to talk to you. We don't have to talk to you. No, this is just for you as a couple, so relax. And promise number 3 is, I want today to be enjoyable. I don't know if you like to laugh, but I really enjoy laughing. And I find it's easier for me to learn if I can laugh a little bit at the same time. So I will make some attempts at humor today because I would like this to be an enjoyable journey. And what we're talking about today is, what's the next step? What's the next step I can take as a husband? What's the next step I can take as a wife? And today is not primarily about your spouse. I know some of you would want to say to me, Greg, you need to fix my spouse. My spouse is broken. Now, when I married them, they were fine, but now they're broken. Well, okay, I hear you, but this afternoon is not about your spouse. It's about you. It's about what's the next step you need to take. I'm going to ask you to own your stuff. Does your spouse have stuff? Oh, yeah, they got stuff. But what I'd like you to do is focus on your stuff and the next step that you need to take in this journey. What's the best thing about me? There are 2 things. Number 1 is that I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and I met him as a senior in high school, and that has been the greatest moment in my life. And secondly is my family. And I'd like to introduce my family to you real quick. So look up at the screen, and you will meet, no, that's not my family. Maybe the bottom right one could be my family, but no. I need the family picture. The family. Oh, there, the family. Good. Sitting on the bottom right next to me is my beautiful wife, Bonnie. Bonnie and I have been married for 41 years, and we were married at the age of 7. We were very mature, very mature. My wife is a retired nurse and does an awesome job in taking care of our family. On the right side, almost up at the top, the guy with the glasses and the bald head, that is my oldest son, Justin. That's his wife, Bretta. They live in Milwaukee. My grandson, Athen. My granddaughter, JL. She is pregnant and due to have a little girl in the month of May. And my son has his doctorate in microbiology, and I guarantee you he does not get that from me. Next, if you look at the very top, that's my oldest daughter, Julia, and that's her husband, Roberto, and they live in Pasadena, California, and she has her doctorate in ministries, and her passion is to save girls who are being trafficked. And then down beneath my oldest son, Justin, In the middle is my daughter, Kelly. And on her lap is my granddaughter, Rosie. And then right on her husband, Philip's lap, is my grandson, Eli. And they live in Rockford, Illinois. And my greatest compliment to Kelly is she's just like her mother. Just like her mother. She has a nursing degree and does a wonderful job in taking care of her family. And then over on the far left, up at the top, is my youngest son, Garrett, and he's good at Xbox. So, there's my family. Well, okay. He is good at Xbox. However, he is also just about to graduate from Gordon Conwell. They live in Boston. He's getting masters in Old Testament and biblical languages, and God is calling him and his wife Cassie right beneath him to the Ukraine, and they're going to be missionaries in the Ukraine. Now, look at this again. Bretta, up next to my oldest son, pregnant, going to have a little girl in May. Right beneath her, in the middle, Kelly. She's pregnant. She's going to have a little girl in May. And right next to is Cassie, Garrett's wife, and she is pregnant and going to have a little girl in May. So my wife is like, how are we going to get to all these births at the same time? So it's pretty exciting. Garrett and Cassie have another child that isn't pictured in here. His name is Levi. So we're going to go from 5 grandchildren to 8 grandchildren like that. So that is pretty sweet. Now, I want to show you a picture that was up there before. There we go. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at this series of pictures, and I want you to pick the one picture that best describes how you feel in your marriage right now. And I'm going to ask you in just a second to turn to your spouse, and I want you to whisper, please. Don't turn to them and say, I feel like roadkill. Don't yell that out loud, okay? So whisper to them how you feel, what picture best represents how you feel in your marriage right now and why. And listen to me. Don't get mad at this. Don't get mad at it. Don't say to your spouse, oh, that's not true. Oh, I don't believe that. These are their feelings. So receive this and learn a little bit how they are feeling about their marriage, okay? Pick a picture, whisper it, discuss it as husband and wife. Ready? Go. All right, now don't hate me. You know the picture that best describes my life right now is upper left. Upper left. But I want to tell you something. That's not how it's always been. These pictures represent seasons in our life. And I believe that Bonnie and I could stand before you this afternoon and we could say to you, there have been times in our life where we could identify with all those pictures for various reasons. And where you are today does not necessarily mean that's where you're going to be tomorrow. I'm going to make a statement, and I will make this statement several times today, and the statement is this. Your yesterdays do not determine your tomorrows. You can be different starting now because Jesus Christ will give you the power to be different. And do you need to make any changes? The answer is absolutely yes. Marriage is not about perfection. Marriage is about process. Marriage is about taking the next step, and it's working on whatever we need to work on. So I'm going to ask you to receive whatever you need to receive today to take that next step. Now turn to your spouse and see if you can get all 4 of these right. What are the big 4 areas in marriage that causes the most trouble, the most problems, the most dissension? What are the 4 main areas couples struggle with today? Turn to your spouse and see if you can guess all 4. Go. Okay, here they are. See how well you did. And these are not in order of importance. Number 1, finances. Number 2, sexual intimacy. Number 3, communication. Number 4, how do we effectively resolve conflict? Those are the big 4 today. Yes, in-laws can play a part. Yes, children can play a part. Yes, others can play a part. But those are basically the big 4. Today, we're going to hit 3 of those 4. Today, we're going to talk about communication, effectively resolving conflict, and sexual intimacy. We will not talk about finances because that is not my strength at all. In our house, Bonnie handles the finances. If I handled the finances, it'd be a disaster. It'd be like, well, we can't be out of money. I've still got checks. So Bonnie takes care of all the finances in our house. However, do you want to know about finances? It's time to take financial peace. It is a seminar coming to this church, and it's going to happen on Tuesday, March 5th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So this church is committed to hitting all the big 4. After today, you want to circle on your calendar Tuesday, March 5th to be a part of that as well. So let's talk about communication. Robert Dodd says this: the goal of marriage is not to think alike, but to think together. A key to any relationship is communication. A lack of communication is a lack of love because we naturally communicate with someone we love. Why do we think that just because we said I do before God and this group of people gathered on our wedding day, that somehow we're magically going to get along? Because I'm here to tell you, we don't magically get along. We don't naturally get along. We naturally drift apart. You've got a purpose to be together. You've got a purpose to grow in a relationship. My closest friend is Bonnie after 41 years. She is my best friend. I can go home after this weekend and I can say, they hated me in North Carolina. They hated me. They came up to me and they said to me, Greg, we've heard bad speakers, but you are number 1. And do you know what my wife would say? She would look at me and say, honey, that's okay. I love you. How great is that? How awesome is that? That I've got somebody who's going to stand with me through the good and through the hard, that we are committed to one another. And allow me to remind you that love is not primarily a gushy, gooey, tingly, goosebumpily feeling. Love is a commitment. Love is something you choose to do whether you feel like it or not. And it's not always easy. And it's not always fun. And it doesn't always feel good. Several Valentine's days ago, I brought my wife into the dining room, sat her down. I brought my 4 kids into the dining room, sat them down. I said to my 4 kids, look at me. I said, I will never leave your mother. I will never leave your mother. She makes bad choices, I'm going to be there. She gets sick, I'm going to be there. She gets hurt, I'm going to be there. I will never leave her. Now, I have men who come up to me who say, you can't say that. You can't make a statement like that. You don't know what's going to happen 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, 6 years from now. You can't say that. And I say to the men, you are absolutely wrong. Because my love for Bonnie has little to do with the way I feel. Does Bonnie ever upset me? Yes, yes. Oh, she can hit these buttons. Oh. But in the same way, do I ever upset Bonnie? No. What? No. Yes. But my love for Bonnie is not based upon how I feel at any certain time. My love for Bonnie is based upon my word is my bond, my character as a man, and my commitment to Jesus Christ. And because that, I will never leave her. That's what love is. That's what I taught my children that love is. When you say, I vow, you are saying for better, for worse, in richer and in poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do you part. That's a commitment. And one of the keys for being close and being friends is communication. And what can you do to be a better communicator? Well, let me suggest some things. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29, it says this: do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, then it may benefit those who listen. Don't just think about yourself and your feelings and your desires. Decide that you're going to control your tongue and your tongue is not going to control you. So don't let unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. But you're there to be helpful and to build up others, primarily your spouse, according to their needs, that it may benefit them who listen. So you got to spend time together. You have got to spend time together. That is number one. Take time. From the time my children were very little to the present day, I try to take my wife out on a date once a week. Once a week. Now, I have people come up to me who say to me, well, we can't afford that. I don't know how much stuff costs in Chicago, but it's expensive here in Locust. We can't afford that. I go, well, okay, here's the deal. You go to a fast food place and you each get a cup of water and you sit in the back booth. It's not about let's spend money. It's about let's get away from the tyranny of the urgent and let's reconnect as a couple. And then people say to me, well, we can't afford babysitting. What are we supposed to do about that? Well, here's what you do. You make a deal with another couple. And you say to them, look, once a week we'll watch your child. If once a week, you'll watch our 6 children. And by the way, that's a good deal for you. It doesn't have to cost anything at all. You need to purpose to spend time together. You need to pick a date night, and the two of you need to go out and you need to reconnect on a regular basis. You need to take time for each other. Secondly, you've got to develop trust. You've got to develop trust. It's one of the foundations of your marriage. Never, ever, 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 ever lie. Never lie. I spend most of my time, much of my time, traveling and speaking to high school and middle school. That's kind of why I'm so weird. I speak to high school and middle school, and teenagers will say this to me: lying's not that big of a deal. Come on. I'm not killing anybody. I'm not robbing a bank. Come on, I'm telling a lie. A lie's not that big of a deal. And I say to them, lying is a huge deal. And how do I know that? I know that for 4 reasons. Number 1, God hates a lying tongue. Proverbs chapter 6. You say to me, whoa, Greg, that's kind of strong. I'll say to you, well, Proverbs chapter 6 says there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Might I suggest you read those 7 and avoid them? And on that list is a lying tongue. Secondly, do not lie, because if your word doesn't mean anything, you don't mean anything, because you are your word. When Dr. Matt contacted me to come and speak here at the church, if he would say to me, hey, Greg, would you send us a contract? I would say to him, Matt, I don't have a contract. Now, if you have a contract, you want to send it to me, I'm happy to sign it, but I don't have a contract. You know why? Because my word is my bond, and I expect your word to be your bond. Turn to the person sitting next to you, your spouse, and tell your spouse, how did your great-grandfather make a deal with another man? How did your great-grandfather make a deal with another man? Tell your spouse. Go. Here's what they did. They looked each other in the eye. They agreed on something. They put their hand out. They shook hands, and it was a done deal. Do you know why we have contracts this thick? Because we can't trust people. Because people are liars. You need to tell the truth, because if your word doesn't mean anything, you don't mean anything, because you are your word. Number 3, do not lie, because when you lie, you shatter your trustworthiness. You want to try something? Go to the dollar store and buy a vase. Go out into your driveway, hold up the vase, and say, this vase represents my trustworthiness. Here's what happens when I lie. Smash it on the driveway. Then pick up all the pieces, put it in a cardboard box, walk into the garage, sit down, and paste that vase back together again and make it look like new. How long is it going to take you to do that? It's going to take you a long time. A long time. Will you remember this? Love is unconditional, trust is earned. Love is unconditional, trust is earned. Could your spouse turn to you right now and say to you, I love you, but I don't trust you? And the answer is yes. Is that a contradiction? The answer is no. No. And how do you earn trust? You earn trust by consistent behavior over a period of time. Meaning, you don't say to your spouse, hey, you can trust me. No, you show your spouse. You show your spouse by your actions. And then number 4, do not lie, because when you lie, you speak Satan's native tongue. John chapter 8. He was a liar from the beginning, not holding to the truth. For when he lies, he speaks his native tongue, for he is a liar and the father of lies. It's like a foreign language. When you lie, you speak a language Satan readily understands. It'd be like me all of a sudden knowing all these foreign languages. Be like me all of a sudden speaking Spanish. Oh, buenas tardes. El guapo, I don't know. It'd be like all of a sudden me being able to speak German. Ah, guten Tag, wie geht es Ihnen? Geht es dir gut? Oh, das ist wunderbar. It'd be like all of a sudden me speaking French. Oh, bonjour. Monsieur de bâton et le jeu de vassin. Oui, oui. Be like me speaking Italian. Eh, buongiorno. Eh, pizza. I don't know. When you lie, you speak a language Satan readily understands. You need to be about the truth. Number one, I want you to take time for each other. Number two, I want you to develop trust. And number three, I want you to seek understanding. Your goal in listening to your spouse is not whether you agree or disagree. And that's, for some of you, has been your goal in the past. Let me see. Do I agree with this or do I disagree with this? And then as soon as you say something I disagree with, boom, I jump right in there to give you my opinion. No. You are listening to seek to understand your spouse. You want to see things from their perspective. Women, here's a heads up. Your husband becomes vulnerable to any woman who will seek to understand him. If there's a woman at the office who will seek to understand him, if there's a woman on social media that will seek to understand him, he becomes vulnerable to that woman. Men, your wife becomes vulnerable to any man who will seek to understand her. Any man at work, any man at church, any man in the neighborhood, who ought to be the number one person to seek to understand our spouse? It ought to be us as husband, and it ought to be us as wife. And that will only happen as we listen with a goal to understand them. Can I remind you that anger crushes understanding? Anger slams the door on communication. Because when you are an angry person, you don't really care about anybody else. All you really want to do is cram your opinion down somebody else's throat. Now, is that a little uncomfortable? That's what it feels like to live with an angry person. It's like walking on eggshells. One minute you say something and everything's fine, and the next minute you say something, they just explode. If this afternoon you're an angry person, if you're an angry man or you're an angry woman, and look, you know better than anybody, I'd like you to make one of two choices. I'm all about options. So here are two options. You choose one of them. Choice number one is stop it. Just stop it. You know, maybe all it's going to take is for you to step up to the plate, take responsibility, and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. You say to me, Greg, is that even possible? And I would just remind you of Philippians 4:13 that says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Do you know how I can say that? Because I was an angry man. I'm going to tell you, if I didn't marry such a wonderful woman, 3 years into our marriage, Bonnie would have said to me, kiss off. And she'd have been gone. One day we're in the car and we're driving along and I would just explode at anything and she said something and I exploded and I don't even remember what it was about, but my beautiful, godly wife started to sob. And at that moment, God broke my heart. And I pulled the car over to the side of the road, and I stopped. And I looked at my wife sobbing, and I said to her, I am so sorry. I said to her, I will never do this again. I am so sick of being an angry man. I'm so sick of getting upset at every little thing. I'm so sick of having my emotions control me. I'm so sick of having my past dictate my present and my future. I'm tired of wrecking relationships. I'm tired of being an angry man. I'm not going to do it anymore. And Bonnie will tell you at that moment, I changed. I was a changed man. And I just throw that out there because I want to suggest that maybe if I can do that, maybe you can do it. Maybe it's just you taking responsibility and saying, yes, I am an angry man. Yes, I am an angry woman. I'm sorry. Starting now, I'm done. I am done taking little molehills and blowing them up into mountains. I'm done getting offended over every little thing. I'm just done. If you say to me, Greg, I don't think I can do that, then choose number 2 alternative. Number 2 alternative is go get some help. Go sit down and talk with somebody, because your anger is not producing the righteousness that God requires. Your anger is hurting your spouse, it's hurting your children, it is destroying relationships, and you've got to get a handle on this area. Anger crushes understanding. I want you to seek to speak your spouse's language. There are 2 types of communicators typically. There are emotional communicators and there are cognitive communicators. Emotional communicators, they want to deal with feelings. How do you feel? How do I feel? How do we feel? Cognitive communicators, they want to deal with the facts. What's the time? What's the temperature? What's the score? How much does it cost? Don't tell me a story. I don't need a story. Just get to the point. What's the point? Now, I don't know why it is, but opposites tend to attract. And you have a cognitive communicator who marries an emotional communicator, and you drive each other insane. I don't know why that is. I suppose if 2 emotional communicators got married, you wouldn't get anything done. Well, are you okay? Well, I'm okay. How come we're crying? I don't know. Just hold me. Hold me. And if it was 2 cognitive communicators, the relationship would be so cold. So, shall we kiss now? No. 5 minutes, see you then. So you've got these opposites that come together. And here's what it can feel like in your house. Meow. Wah. It feels like we're always missing each other. We're always missing each other. Now, hear this. One is not better than the other. They're just different. If you're an emotional communicator, that's a good thing. If you're a cognitive communicator, that's a good thing. When I would take students on short-term missions trips to the British Isles, I would not say to these teenagers, oh, look, these people drive on the wrong side of the road. I would say they drive on the other side of the road. So good for you being cognitive, good for you being emotional, and stop trying to change your spouse. Stop trying to form your spouse into your image. You rejoice in the way God created your spouse, and you embrace the fact that you are different. And by the way, stereotypes would say men are cognitive communicators, women are emotional communicators. I just want to let you know, when it comes to Bonnie and I, Bonnie is the cognitive communicator, I am the emotional communicator, so it can go either way. So, what's the answer? The answer is, starting right now, you need to honor each other's style of communication. And how do you do that? This is pretty simple, but this is profound. And if you will put this into effect starting now, I'm telling you, it will have a huge positive impact on your marriage. Starting now, always respond to emotion with emotion and fact with fact. Always respond to emotion with emotion and fact with fact. That's how you honor their style of communication. Now, emotion meaning intensity? No. Emotion meaning empathy and understanding. For argument's sake, Let's say the man is the cognitive communicator, the wife is the emotional communicator. It's a Saturday morning. Men, you are sitting in the den. You are reading on your iTablet there, and your wife comes in from shopping. And she walks into the den. She's been grocery shopping, and she says to you, "This has been the worst morning of my life. I walked into the grocery store and these little teenage boys followed me in and they made these rude comments, but I just tried to ignore them, and I grabbed a cart and it had a real wobbly wheel, but I didn't want to go back because of the teenagers, and I got the cart filled and I went around a turn and the wheel fell off and the cart went down and the eggs smashed and the oil broke and people pointed and they laughed and nobody would help me, and I was so embarrassed and humiliated, and I had to get another cart and refill it, and then I got more eggs and oil, and I just wanted to get out of there, and I got in a huge line, and I got to the front, and a little sign said 7 items or less. Oh, so I had to get in another huge line, and I got to the front, and the girl was so fast scanning, I couldn't even keep up with her, and I got flustered, and I couldn't find my checkbook, and people were yelling at me, and they were so rude, and I forgot the watermelon was underneath, and they accused me of stealing the watermelon. And this has been the worst morning of my life. And men, you look up from that iTablet and you say, "Well, why don't you shop someplace else?" Number one, there are X number of men sitting in here right now thinking to themselves, well, sure. Well, sure, that's the answer. If they're going to treat you poorly, we'll just take our business elsewhere. Men, listen to me. This is not about taking your business elsewhere. This is about you connecting with your wife and understanding her. Because you have just responded to emotion with fact. And when you do that, you want to know the first thing your wife thinks? The first thing your wife thinks is this: you don't understand me at all. You don't really get me at all. And if you do it enough, she can begin to think you don't really care about me. Now, that may not be true, but men, that's how you're coming across. When your wife shares emotionally with you, you need to respond with emotion. You need to respond with compassion and love and caring. You need to put down the tablet. You need to stand up. You need to say, "Oh, my little potato pancake." You need to go over to her. You need to give her a hug. You need to say, "Honey, that must have been so hard. That must have been so frustrating." You need to respond to emotion with emotion. In the same way, if you're talking facts, and the man says, "Look, we cannot afford $12,000 for living room furniture," and women, you say, "You don't love me anymore." What? What does love have anything to do with what we're talking about? And he's right. We're not talking about emotion at this point. We're talking about how much does living room furniture cost. Starting now, respond to emotion with emotion and fact with fact. And do you know what will begin to happen in your house? Here's what will begin to happen. You're going to start connecting as husband and wife. And by the way, here's just a side tip. Your children tend to be emotional communicators. And as parents, you're trying to teach them life, so you both become cognitive communicators. And the same thing that's true between husband and wife is true between parent and child. You need to respond to your child's emotion with emotion. How many times has your child said to you, "You don't really understand me. You don't really get me"? Chances are that's a moment where they've shared with you from an emotional point of view and you have responded from a cognitive perspective. I want you to know when you respond to emotion with emotion, it opens them to the truth and it opens them to the facts later on. Seek to speak their language. Also remember, your words make it easy for your spouse to receive the message, or you make it hard. Why would you want to make it hard? That is just like totally counterproductive for you. The stupidest thing my mother ever said to me was one day my mother looked at me and she said, "Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt you." Really? I'd much rather be hit by a stick. I'd much rather be nailed by a stone. That pain is temporary. Words can hurt for a lifetime. You've got to think before you speak, and your words need to make it easy for the person to receive it. You don't want to make it hard, because that's counterproductive for you. For example, what's easier for me to receive? "You're never home," or "I miss you." What's easier for me to receive? "You're a lousy driver," or "When I ride with you, it makes me glad I know Jesus." So how you say something makes it easy for me to receive or makes it hard for me to receive. And stop sending contradictory messages. How many times has this happened in your house? Somebody comes home, take their stuff, set out the dinner table. Somebody passes them the mashed potatoes, they pass it on. And you look at this person and you say, "Honey, what's wrong?" And what's their response? "Nothing!" That's a contradictory message. 7% of that message says nothing's wrong. 93% of that message says, "I'm really upset." You got to make sure that you are sending whole messages. See, every time you communicate a message, it's made up of 3 parts, okay? Can I use you in this illustration? Because you and I have become best friends with Notre Dame there. So I'm going to say the same thing 3 times, and you tell me if you notice the difference. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get up. All you have to do is just sit there, okay? Say the same thing to you 3 times. You tell me if you notice a difference. Hey, I'm not upset. Hey, I'm not upset. I'm not upset. I said the same thing to you 3 times. You better have gotten 3 different messages. If you didn't, you're in big trouble. You've got to remember, when you communicate a message, it's made up of 3 parts. 7% of the message you communicate are the words. "Hello, how are you? Nice to see you." 38% of every message you communicate is your voice inflection. It's your volume. It's how you say it. And 55% of every message you communicate, it's how you stand. It's what you do with your hands. It's your facial expression. You've got to make sure that the 7% that comes out of your mouth is matching the other 93%. Otherwise, you end up sending contradictory messages to one another. And then lastly, I just want you to listen to one another. I want you to listen to one another. James chapter 1 and verse 19. Everybody is to be slow to speak and slow to get angry and quick to listen. It'd be interesting right now if I had you stand up as a couple. Oh, wait, I never pick on the front row. So if I had you two stand up as a couple, no, don't really do this. Stand up as a couple, and I asked her, do you feel like he really listens to you? And then I ask him, do you feel like she really listens to you? Don't shake your head like that. Well, how would they respond? How would they respond right now, this afternoon? Because listening is a key. Listening is a key for us to really connect with one another. Let me remind you of just some characteristics of a good listener. A good listener is someone who makes eye contact. Turn off the TV, take out the earbuds, put down the iTablet, shut off the football game. Well, let's not get ridiculous. But the whole idea is you're going to make eye contact with this person, and they are going to be your top priority. I said this before, you listen with understanding. You're trying to see things from their perspective. You ask questions. Ask clarifying questions. And that says to your spouse, I really want to understand you. In your relationship, in your home, there needs to be tech-free zones. And if you would discuss that as a couple, there needs to be tech-free zones where we're not checking the iPhone. I will just tell you, when it comes to the Speck family, one of our tech-free zones was the dinner table. When we gathered at the dinner table, nobody brought their technology to the table. That includes Dad. Nobody brought their iPhones. Nobody brought any of that stuff. And we sat down together for this meal, and I expected everybody to be a participator. My children, I would say to them, look, I get it. You've had hard days. Guess what? I have hard days. I understand things go poorly for you. You know what? Things go poorly for me. But we cannot allow our emotions to control and manipulate us. We need to do the right thing. So I'm going to ask you to come to this dinner table, and I'm going to ask you to be a participator, and we're going to talk together around this table. And one of the things some of the times I would say is this. Tell me 3 things that happened to you today, and how did you feel about it? My youngest to my oldest could share that. And we just go around the table and we would just discuss things. Could I also suggest maybe you might want to consider at the dinner table that you have a short devotional? And can I remind you that less is more when it comes to devotions? Better to go short and be done, and for kids to be like, wow, that's pretty good, than to say, let's read the book of Leviticus and just kill the whole thing. Right? So I want you to be sensitive to one another. I want you to respond to emotion with emotion, fact with fact, and I want you to listen to one another. I'm going to dismiss you from here, and we're going to take a 15-minute break for you to go to the bathroom and fill up on coffee and soda so you can go to the bathroom some more. Also, I want to mention to you on the back table, first of all, I give my 100% stamp of approval to the family life table. So the table on the left with all the materials there, I'm telling you, that is excellent. That is awesome stuff. Check that out. That is the best. And then on my table, I just want to mention, I've got a book there called Built to Last. And I take you through the book of James. It's a devotional book, one verse at a time, over 90 devotions. It's geared for young people, so that's something you might want to check out, something that you could do around the dinner table and share a little bit in devotions. Let me pray for you, and then you're out of here. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for bringing these couples here. God, I understand there are some areas they do well in and some areas they do poorly in. And God, I pray that you would continue to stretch them, speak to them, and Lord, help them to own their stuff. We thank you, we love you, and we just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Be back in here for the drawing at 3:15. You are out of here.